All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, September 29th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today. So markets here today, just another exhausting day in the market. A lot of whipsaw. This morning is very interesting. So we had PCE come out and, it was kind of a nothing burger, right? The market was already going to gap up anyway, but they gave us a little bit more juice. It came in basically in line with expectations. Wasn't much of a big deal. Jerome Powell's speech yesterday, also not a big deal as well. He did not discuss monetary policy. That was announced right before I think they went on the air. But markets today, definition of a gap and crap, I would say, for the most part here. A couple things we got to cover. First order of business here is the SPX. We're going to look at that first. We gapped up into this under the August lows, and what do? We closed below that on a monthly. So end of month, took out that pivot. Additionally, something you could look at too is we closed below this pivot high here, which was the breakout area. So for the bears, you could say you have a false breakout, and you have back checked to that area of the most recent breakdown. And then for the bulls here, your positive is, if we look on a weekly, this is not a terrible look here, right? This trend line and a little tail candle, right? So we didn't, we only closed down, 11 points on the SPX today. It wasn't so much the close down, obviously, but it was the price action. And if this type of price action continues, meaning sideways-ish, that's going to make this trend line minor. And you can make a case the bears are setting up a base here. So for the bulls, you got to get above this. So you now know where your level is, 43.35. Daily close above that can get you up to the gap window, and probably the 4,400 area potentially. There's the 100 MA, 20 MA in that area. But right now it's a win for the bears here. So the markets, and like I said yesterday, if this was a legitimate, I don't believe the low is in. Markets don't end on a gap down or a gap up. They end on a gap down and then a vol spike. VIX never got above 20. I would have preferred to have seen, a 20, 21 on the VIX. And we did go into the trend line, so we respect that. But, again, looking at yesterday, okay, nice pop. But, if you've been through bear markets before and you see bottoms, especially yesterday morning, this should have been like up here in the morning. It should have gapped higher too. I mean, it's just not enough follow through for me. And then really today, being unable to hold the gains today, not really a good sign, especially going into end of quarter, right? They should have window dressed this into end of quarter, right? Pump everything up, get everybody feeling good, especially into the weekend. Also told my members today, if the selling doesn't kind of stop here at some point, we could fade into the close, and we kind of did that a little bit. VIX actually getting a pump up towards the end of the day. When you have these kind of gap and crap sessions, it's demoralizing, especially going into a weekend, and investors get a little nervous about holding into the weekend. One other thing I want to talk about the weekend too. Let's look at JNK. We've been covering this a little bit lately. Only down 6 cents, but again, backing into that trend line and coming back in. You can see the same thing on HYG, although it gapped above the trend line and then closed back below. Why am I bringing these up? Junk bonds are important right now. The rate hike lag effects, I think there's some cracks starting to come into the market. Again, VNQ up 22 cents, but not a strong chart. Not a strong monthly close, right? Very weak. Commercial real estate, we know what's going on with that, right? There's problems. Why am I bringing this up? Let's take a look again. I talked about this yesterday, but gold's telling us something. There's something wrong here, right? It wouldn't surprise me if there's news over the weekend. Something out of left field, hedge fund went under. But this looks like margin selling. It stinks like margin selling. Look at silver today. Look at that candle. That looks like a rescue operation so that somebody could sell into it. That is an ugly close. Take a look at wheat. I stopped out of this today. I don't know what's going on with these commodities here. Maybe this is an end of quarter shakeout on wheat. Possible. But seeing this kind of stuff, always gets my antennas going. So again, it's all about pattern here. Spiders, again, down 26. Basis points on the day. But again, watch pattern here. If we're going sideways, that's setting up a base. If you lose this trend line, especially on a weekly close or this pivot, really on a daily close, this pivot would be a huge negative, but a weekly close of that pivot would be a big negative for the market. And obviously, again, you got to get back above. I'm going to use the SPX because I don't like the dividend recently, but you got to get back above 43.35 for the bulls there. Triple Qs, again, close green. So on the surface, you wouldn't think anything wrong, but gapping into the 100 and that trend line and then rejecting off of that. So again, it had a chance to squeeze up. It looked like it was going to be a trend day at one point. The Qs it was like gap and go here, and then we came all the way back in. And again, closed up 26 cents there. I know Tesla got those delivery numbers. That was getting pumped up. They closed it right on 250. Whole round number there. Some stocks. Meta was getting pumped a little bit earlier. By the way, Apple, before I forget, what did Apple do today? Most important stock in the world. Goes below that pivot as well as this one too on a monthly. And that big green all-time high breakout bar too. These are not things that I bring up for no reason. So just so you guys know. But triple Qs here. Watch that trend line. You got to get back above that on a close. And then, you got the gap there. And then I would say 370 is good resistance. But you stay below that trend line and consolidate. It can set up a base. And as I've mentioned before, there's no weekly support here, right? So nothing down to 320. So just be aware of that. Russell 2000, ugly. Down 0.5% on the day, gap and crap. This thing just cannot get out of its own way, can't get a rally going. And that head and shoulder pattern is still clean to 165. So I do not like small caps here. Doesn't mean it goes down in a straight line. There will be bounces, but definitely ugly price action. Also ugly price action. Dow, that's an engulfing, or very close to an engulfing there on the DIA. Retesting the 200, closing near the lows. Again, if this sets up sideways, it can go lower. Semiconductors, again, up 68 cents. Did close below this pivot, closed below the trend line again. We did close back above the August pivot. That's a positive. I'm going to remove that for now to clean up the chart. But the trend is starting to turn down here. So you got to get back above these moving averages, the 100, the 20, and really a daily close above 150.54, we'll call it, would change a lot of this. But right now, nothing to say this can't roll back down. But it did have a nice outside move yesterday, and it held up today, so we'll definitely respect that. Finishing up 0.5%. IGV also finishing up as well, up $1.33. I'm not going to make too much out of it here. I'm going to get rid of this. We already violated that on a weekly close. And then we kind of rallied up to double top. We pulled back in. We're holding 340. Again, 350 here is going to be resistance. I won't make too much more out of it than that. Back below this pivot, and then it's in a lot of trouble. Dow Transports here, again, kind of a weak session, and that's with crude coming in, which we'll talk about in a minute. Take a look here at the intraday. You had a nice bull flag here, and that came right down when the market really started to sell. But still, finished just down 17 points, nothing crazy. Again, just like here and just like right here, if we continue sideways, that 200 moving average becomes minor. And, if that breaks, you lose this kind of support zone. I think it probably goes down to about 14.2. But right now, it's holding up. You got to get back above this 15.250, 15.3 area for a shot at 15.6. But right now, a little bit on the softer side there, even with crude oil prices coming in. All right, interest rates here. There's the 210. Again, I'm glad I just looked at this because, again, this is another thing here with JNK, with VNQ, with gold coming in. Something's changing, right? Something's changing. This is not the same macro environment. So pay attention to these things. There's the 3-month, 10-year. But anyways, interest rates here, 2-year down a little bit. Looks like we just saved that daily green bar low. So that technically is still a bullish inside bar until proven otherwise. On the 2-year, that can still go higher. Trend is up. Respect it. 5-year, trend is still up. Respect that. 10-year, the long end, I think, is a little more extended. This did finish green, as did the 30-year, but I think this is getting real top heavy here, at least for the short term. So we'll see if we can get some type of pullback in yields. They are very extended. They are extended for a reason, though, so just be aware of that. But yields having a good week, although they are getting a little stretched here. XHB, not a good sign here. Down 52 cents. I talked about this level yesterday, possibly hitting that trend line. For all intents and purposes, we'll say this is a hit. It's a kiss, and you have an inside bar setting up here on the daily. So what that means is this trend line here, if you consolidate through it, you're building up compression to break that door down, right? If you come down here in a straight line, it's probably going to hold, right? But you're consolidating above it. So it is building compression. As long as you stay below this, this can set up for a move lower, possibly into that 200 moving average there. But really, $70, I think that's really good support. 72 also is an area. But again, monthly close, weekly close. What do we do here today? Green bar, both of them gone on the weekly. Monthly, that power green bar gone. Okay, then you can see there clearly your $70 handle. That's why I say I like that level. But watch those. So XHB definitely weaker. VNQ we already talked about. Double bottom, dead cat bounce so far. I think something's wrong with it. I would just avoid it altogether. If you're desperate to trade it, just trade it off the double bottom on a weekly close. XLF, weekly close below this trend line. So take a look there. Strangely enough, maybe there's a little bit, I don't know if this is just volatility dispersion, but KRE was green today, up 48 cents. Not a great pattern. I mean, that's not a good look any way you look at it. Could just be a dead cat bounce. I mean, there is a good amount of support right here. This is kind of where we reversed after we were starting to sell off. So it's holding up, but not a great pattern there. All things considered, same thing with KBE there. Don't want to lose those pivots, that 36 handle. Otherwise, it is in trouble. KBWB as well. That one is definitely much weaker. All right. Broker dealers here down as well. Touched 490. If it sets up sideways, just like everything else, it can push down to, we'll say 475, 470. On the flip side, 500 or so. We'll just leave it at that. All right. Crude here. Pulling in. It did save the breakout bar on the daily. But my concern here was that it's really overbought on the weekly. Finished with a doji with good volume. So could be a sign of buyer exhaustion. It also went up into this weekly level. And on the monthly, look what you did. Pivots, we're closing below those. And if you look at the trend here, you got nice spacing. I like the 50s, but 50 is above the 100. 50 is not above the 200. And the 100 is not above the 200. 20 is above the rest, though. That's good. But look at how they're all flat, right? So I think this has a little bit more consolidating to do, and then I think the trend can resume. Again, seeing a lot of lofty price targets recently as well. That kind of gets me a little on the other side of the trade. I think those price targets will play out, but when everybody's on TV calling for them every day, kind of want to get on the other side of the boat. XLE, talked about window dressing yesterday. Looks like that already got done because that was down 2% on the day. Pretty good hit, but nothing terrible here. You do have lower highs. You don't want to see it take out this low. If that happens, we'll probably look at 88 here in the short term. Your big support is obviously 85, and then I'm going to get rid of this trend line. I don't care about that anymore. We'll just say 85 there for XLE, but really right now I still don't see any reason why I can't go to double top, even if crude comes in a little bit. Just be aware of that. These names are getting chased pretty hard. XOP also coming in, possible lower high, same setup, right? So take out that pivot. This can probably go back down to 135. And then the OIH, pretty good outside move, down 3% on the day, but this is still holding up. Monthly, kiss that trend line, or kiss that 100 moving average, nice pullback. Let's look at uranium quick. CCJ coming in. I want to look at the weekly here. All right, so we didn't close above that. So here's the thing, the daily, it still looks like, oh man, this is just a power train. But weekly, you haven't made new highs. I mean, you made a new high this week, but you haven't made new closing highs in 2 weeks. So again, maybe a little bit of buyer exhaustion. Let's look at the monthly. Coming off the highs a little bit there into a pretty big resistance level on the monthly. Again, it still looks exhausted. Doesn't mean it can't go higher. I want to be clear on that, but they're getting really rich here. URNM engulfing, right? Weekly, a little bit of a tail. Monthly, pretty good. Still has a tail, but I mean, you're coming into this big monthly level here. So again, uranium a little stretched. Please don't chase it. If you own it, trail your stop. Nat gas flat on the day. Just got to get to 3. That's really what it comes down to. I don't know if they're going to attack this rollover gap. I think it's kind of too obvious, but we'll see what they want to do here. I mean, if they're going to give away a free 35 cents, the market generally doesn't make things that easy for you. So we'll see. They did come down today. If you notice here, we sold off, basically hit the gap window, and then we reversed. So I don't know. Maybe they tried to trap some shorts in there. It's possible. But nat gas finishing, basically at the highs of the week. Dollar index here. So that did pull back a little bit today, but came off the lows. Again, it's holding up. It's not going to go down without a fight here. This is a very strong trend. Again, 11 weeks in a row up. So very powerful move. A little bit of a tail there on the weekly. But the monthly, as opposed to crude, for instance, which I talked about, it's kind of very similar setup. In fact, I mean, look at this. It's almost the same chart. But the difference here with the dollar is look at where the 200 is, look where the 50 is, look where the 20 is. 20 above the 50, 50 above the 200. The 100 MA would be somewhere in here. I just don't have it on TradingView. But good spacing. Telling you the trend is up. So I like the dollar more than I like crude right now, even though they're not really the same thing. They have this very similar chart. But either way, it's into resistance and we'll respect it. It may stall out, which brings me to another thing here. If there is some risk-off event lurking, it kind of makes sense, right? Because the dollar was red yesterday and gold got pounded. And gold was, the dollar, it finished flat today, and gold still got pounded. So correlation's starting to break down. Gold selling off with yields being, or I should say bonds being bid the last 2 days as well. Something's wrong, right? Something's not right. And this is not just like, oh, it's just down, like gold's down a few points. Like this is a breakdown of that wedge pattern. We can get rid of that now. Take a look at this. I'm just going to change the color so it's not messing our eyes up here, but take a look at the weekly. That's a weekly failed inside bar. Your positive is the monthly right there is still intact. But something's wrong. Silver, look at that candle. Like that's an epic candle right there. That's going to 21. Buying. Platinum up 60 cents. That still has to go down. Palladium still a nothing burger, still needs to go to 1100. And copper was up nicely earlier today. I think I told you guys yesterday 380. Didn't quite get there. 378.6, sorry. But what you did do is you closed back inside of this wedge on the weekly. So lives to fight another day. And we'll extend that out. And we'll leave it at that. Although I'll say this is not a strong pattern, right? This bigger time frame here. I'm going to get rid of this 370 level. Down move, sideways action. Not very good. I still think it needs to go test 340. Bitcoin, a little bit of a inside day. So nothing terrible. Trying to hold above the 50. Nothing has changed though. The weekly pattern is still bearish inside bar until proven otherwise. The positive here for Bitcoin is still the monthly. Is still holding up okay. But you don't want to see it move away from that 20-month moving average. But you do have a decent pattern there on the monthly. So I'll give it that. But weekly, not very good. And daily, just a lot of chop shop. Okay, lastly, just a couple things to remember on the spiders going into next week. I'm going to use SPX again, sorry. We tested this, gap and crap. It's a win for the bears because you protected that monthly low and you closed below this pivot high. That's a big deal to me. Additionally, another win. Apple, monthly close, monthly weakness there. The positive for the bulls here is the weekly time frame doesn't look terrible. You have that nice trend line to go off of, but you really need to get back above 43.35 here, and you do not want to see sideways action next week. That is going to set up for a move lower and let those moving averages catch up. So that is not something that bulls want to see here going into next week. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Have a great weekend. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I will talk to you guys all next week.